This episode discusses domestic violence and a detailed homicide of a young woman. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi, I'm Lady Salem.
And I'm Madam Omen.
Join us as we dive deeper into Galveston's history. Pirates and storms, true crime and tragedy.
And the lore and legends that were born from it.
We're not here to tell ghost stories. We're here to uncover where they started.
And what never fully let go. And who stayed behind.
Beyond the past, because history doesn't rest, and neither should you. Good evening, Madam Omen. I heard a rumor that you have a little four-legged chaos going on over there.
Yeah, that would be crazy, Lucy. She has now entered her I will chew all of your shoes and want to play at 3 a.m.
Oh, no.
Absolutely. So if I seem calm tonight, just know it's an act.
Yeah, I think I heard a little bark right before we started.
Mm-hmm.
So this week at Historic Galveston Ghost Tours, it was a little slow, but not because of the season, but because it was freezing outside, and I don't blame anyone for not wanting to go out. We're about a week behind on our podcast, so we're in the ice ages right now. But you know what? I'm having so much fun meeting people from all over.
I love that so much for you. I mean, you've been walking history, not just researching it.
Yes, exactly. And with that said, anyone listening, just stay with us till the end of the episode, and I'll tell you a little more and toss you a coupon code if you happen to be in Galveston.
Nicely done.
Thank you. Subtlety is my superpower. Tonight, we're changing gears, and we're going to step into a realm of history we haven't quite fully lived in yet.
True crime, a real case from the 1800s. One that doesn't rely on legend or folklore, but on record, testimony, and the way a woman's life was spoken about after she could no longer speak for herself.
This is about a real woman, a real crime, and a past that didn't have the language or the protections that we have today.
This isn't a mystery that we're trying to solve. The facts are known, and I'm going to be honest with you, Salem. This story is a hard one for me to even record. Even just co-writing this together, it documents an early domestic violence case that sounds so much like victims and survivor stories today. And, you may remember when we first met, I was at the beginning of my own survivor story around a decade ago. So this is a piece that I want to ensure that we handle with care, honor, and respect, because domestic violence is not something that should be quieted. It shouldn't be hushed. These are stories that need to be talked about, regardless of how long ago they were. This is a story that is close to my heart, and I hope that anyone who is listening who may also feel affected by this knows that you are deserving of safety and peace, and that help is available.
And that is what we're going to do tonight. We are going to listen and remember. Hi, I'm Lady Salem.
And I'm Madam Omen.
Tonight, we're diving into a true crime case where the victim is still remembered today. By the time her name reaches the courtroom, it has already been separated from her voice. Elizabeth Percival enters the story not as a woman, but as a subject spoken about, written down, and handled carefully by men who will never meet her alive.
The room is full long before the testimony begins. Wooden benches packed tight, men standing along the walls, women leaning forward to catch every word. The air is heavy, not with grief, but with expectation. Everyone here knows why they have come.
The Galveston Daily News lingers on the difficulty of seating a jury. A special veneer exhausted. Then another called. More men summoned until the box was finally filled. On paper, it was a procedural detail. In the room, it was something else entirely. A crowd watching itself, measuring reactions before the case had even begun. What it won't capture is the way people watch each other while they wait, trying to read the reactions before the facts are even spoken.
This is often how truth is handled in 1881, not with evidence laid neatly on a table, but with bodies in a room, listening to other bodies remember. Memory is the currency here, and everyone knows how fragile that is.
Witnesses wait in the hallway. Some rehearse what they plan to say. Others sit quietly, staring at the floor. They are about to become a part of the record, whether they want to be or not.
At the center of it all is a man brought in under guard. He takes his place before the court, already framed by language that will try to explain him. Defendant, prisoner, accused.
But the name spoke most often isn't his.
It's hers.
Elizabeth Percival.
Her name moves through the courtroom, repeated by attorneys, by witnesses, by the judge himself, detached from the woman who once answered to it. No one here can hear her speak.
And before the court can decide what happens, before guilt or innocence is argued, the city must first reconstruct who she was.
Because everything that follows the testimony, the verdict, the memory, depends on that.
So let's step back.
Before the courtroom, before the record.
To the woman behind the name. Before Elizabeth Percival became a name spoken in court, she was a woman navigating a port city that never truly rested. Galveston in the 19th century was loud, crowded, and constantly in motion. Ships arriving, people leaving, fortunes made and lost between the tides.
Elizabeth came into that world carrying the quiet resilience of someone who had already crossed an ocean. Born in Gloucestershire, England, in 1843, she belonged to a generation shaped by movement. Immigration wasn't a story of adventure then. It was a dark survival story involving calculation, endurance, resiliency, and just being able to keep moving forward.
And when she settled in Galveston, she didn't disappear into someone else's household. She built her own. The English kitchen wasn't glamorous, but it was essential. It fed people who worked the docks, housed travelers who passed through, and demanded long hours from anyone who relied on it for income.
And the record isn't unambiguous here. Elizabeth Percival was the proprietress, not a helper, not a silent partner. The house answered to her. The business ran through her hands. Every meal served, every room rented, every decision was made by her.
And later, after her death, the law would inventory her belongings, line by line. Tables, chairs, kitchenware, fixtures. But long before anyone reduced her life to a list, those objects represented something else entirely. Autonomy.
That autonomy mattered. In the late 1880s, women could own property, but independence carried a cost. A woman who ran a business stood out. She was visible, scrutinized, expected to maintain order without ever appearing authoritative.
Yeah, and Elizabeth lived inside that tension. The English kitchen wasn't just where she worked. It was where she set boundaries. And when those boundaries were challenged, it wasn't merely personal. It threatened the stability of everything she had built.
Now, people came and went under her roof. Some stayed longer than they should. Some carried histories with them that didn't remain neatly packed away.
And one of those histories involved Richard Stevens, whose actions would bring the law into her home.
You know, I was hesitant to even say his name. This story is about Elizabeth. But naming him does acknowledge the historical record, the harm, the accountability that followed. So, to understand what happens later, we need to understand that this was not just a single moment, but a pattern already in motion.
And like most patterns involving fear, it didn't announce itself all at once. When history looks back on moments like this, it often wants a clean beginning, a single argument, a single night, a single decision. But that isn't how people remember things later.
What they describe instead is an accumulation. Small moments stacking quietly on top of one another. Conversations about money, about work, about who belonged in the house and who no longer did. Power and control.
Now, Richard Stevens had been living at the English kitchen for a time. Not as a stranger in passing, though, but as someone already woven into Elizabeth's life. They had been married, they had been separated, and despite that separation, proximity returned.
Witnesses would later testify that the relationship hadn't ended cleanly and that arguments had occurred before. Elizabeth had, more than once, put Stevens out of the house, and more than once, he returned.
Money surfaces repeatedly in the testimony. Requests, refusals, demands that he leave and find work. These weren't abstract disputes. They were practical ones. The English kitchen ran on margins, not sentiment.
And woven through those disputes were threats, attempts at intimidation and coercion. Not shouted for the neighborhood to hear, but spoken in ways that lingered. Witnesses later remember Stevens threatening Elizabeth's life. After the fact, those words could no longer be ignored.
Now, it's important to sit with that for a moment, because these threats didn't appear suddenly in the courtroom. They existed beforehand in a world that didn't yet have language, laws, or urgencies around domestic violence.
In the 19th century, what happened inside a household was often considered private. Even when fear was present, intervention usually came late, after something irreversible forced it into the open.
Elizabeth Percival was managing a business, a household, and a relationship at the same time.
And by early March of 1881, the balance was already fragile.
The city didn't know it yet, but the night everyone remembers was already approaching.
And it arrived wearing a celebration.
It was Mardi Gras night. The streets were crowded. Parades moved along Market Street. Music echoed between buildings. Firecrackers snapped. Laughter rose and fell in waves. And above it all, the windows of the English kitchen were open, and not just for celebration, but also for air. March nights could still be heavy, and the kitchen ran hot. The noise from below was unavoidable. Elizabeth Percival was inside a small working room above her business. Not a parlor, not a sitting room meant for comfort. The space reflected its purpose: practical, controlled, hers. Richard Stevens was there. The two had been married, separated, and were no longer living as a single household. Witnesses would later testify that Elizabeth had already put him out of the house. And on that morning of March 3rd, she had told him again to go find work, to leave her home, and to stop pressing for money. That night, he was back. What the testimony makes clear is that Elizabeth did not shrink from him. Those who knew her described her as a woman accustomed to holding her ground in a business, in life, and in her house. The argument that unfolded was not sudden. It was familiar. It centered around money, a demand that Elizabeth had already refused. At some point, that argument turned violent. The precise second cannot be pinned down. The room was loud, the streets even louder. But what followed is consistent across testimony. Elizabeth was shot in the right side. The bullet passed through her lung. The injury was grave, but not immediately fatal. And this is where the record reveals her strength most clearly. Witnesses testified that Elizabeth remained conscious, that she attempted to rise, that she moved more than once, trying to put space between herself and danger, and she understood what had happened to her. Those who later entered the room described her as trying to speak, trying to stand, trying to move forward safely as her body began to fail her. Outside, the parade continued. Music surged. Firecrackers burst. Several witnesses would later say they believed the sounds they heard were part of the celebration below, not from violence above. Inside, though, others rushed in. A weapon was taken from Stevens. He was restrained. Elizabeth was carried from the room she had run and ruled past faces that had been laughing only moments earlier. The parade did not stop. But for Elizabeth Percival, the night had already shifted beyond recovery. When the courtroom reconvenes, the room feels different. This is no longer a question of what happened, but how it will be explained.
Witnesses are called one by one. Some speak clearly, and others struggle. Not because they can't remember, but because the memory carries the weight when it must be spoken out loud. It's just so hard to retell it.
Yeah. And they describe the room, the window, the stove, the way Elizabeth moved, trying to rise, trying to speak. They repeat the words exactly as they heard them.
You shot me.
That sentence enters the official record.
The defense does not deny the shooting. Instead, it offers another explanation, that Richard Stevens was not of sound mind.
The evidence shows premonition, not madness.
Insanity is introduced into the framework, not to absolve harm, but to reframe responsibility. The court listens as doctors speak, as acquaintances describe his temperament, as the idea of instability is weighed against intention.
The prosecution returns again and again to what Stevens said before and after the shooting, to the threats witnesses remembered, and to the statement made during the arrest.
The jury is asked to hold two truths at once: that a man may be unstable, but still accountable.
Because in the 19th century, insanity defenses were often used to soften violence committed inside the home. Domestic harm could be minimized and explained away as a private tragedy.
But in this courtroom, that argument does not prevail.
The pattern is established, and Elizabeth Percival's voice is carried through witnesses and remains present.
Richard Stevens is guilty. The story does not end with the verdict. It spreads across columns, coffee tables, passed hand to hand in folded sheets, still smelling of ink.
Newspapers recount the facts with the practiced distance. Names, dates, locations. The language is careful, not sentimental, not condemning. Violence is described plainly, as though restraint itself might restore order.
Elizabeth Percival becomes the deceased. Richard Stevens becomes the prisoner, and the English kitchen is reduced to an address.
There is no editorial outrage, no public reckoning. Domestic violence is still spoken of as misfortune, something tragic, but contained.
Yet the city does not forget her entirely. It cannot. Too many people knew her. Too many people had eaten at her tables, slept under her roof, watched her work.
Her funeral draws a crowd. Friends, acquaintances, those who described her as warm, industrious, generous, a woman who built herself up from almost nothing.
Floral tributes are laid, words of respect are spoken. She is carried from her home on 18th Street and buried in the Episcopal Cemetery.
And then Galveston does, as it always does. The city moves forward.
The English kitchen does not linger as a place of mourning. An administrative cell is announced. Furniture, fixtures, kitchenware, all sold in bulk, exactly as they stood.
It is a practical ending, a legal one. The kind that allows a city to close a chapter without fully examining what it meant.
Elizabeth Percival's life is inventoried, her death recorded, her case archived.
And yet, something remains.
When the record closes, it doesn't mean the story ended.
What remains is quieter, harder to catalog, the context that shaped how this case unfolded in the first place.
Elizabeth Percival lived in a time when women could own property, but were still widely treated as extensions of the men in their lives. Independence existed, but it came with scrutiny, and sometimes with danger.
Running a business as a woman in the 1880s wasn't common. Running it alone, setting boundaries, refusing financial demands, that made Elizabeth visible in ways that the law did not yet know how to protect.
Domestic violence as a concept did not exist the way it does now. There were no hotlines, no restraining orders, no language that framed repeated threats as a pattern.
What happened behind closed doors was often treated as private, even when fear was present, even when witnesses later admitted that they had heard the threats before.
And today we recognize those signs. We name them. We teach them. We understand that violence rarely begins with a single act.
But in 1881, that recognition came too late, after harm had forced itself into the public's view.
Now, that doesn't mean that the past was careless. It just means it was limited to the tools they had at the time.
Within those limits, the court did do something important. It listened, it recorded, and it convicted.
Yeah, and Elizabeth Percival's voice entered the record through others and did not disappear.
No. And over time, something unexpected happened.
The city remembered her, not as a warning, not as a spectacle, but as a woman who mattered. The record does note what became of Richard Stevens. He was convicted, sentenced, removed from the center of the story, and placed where the law decided he belonged.
And after that, he fades. No monuments, no traditions, no lingering presence in the city's memory.
History does not carry him forward.
Elizabeth Percival, however, does remain.
She was laid to rest in the Episcopal Cemetery, beneath a stone that tells facts plainly: her name, her birthplace, her age, in a short verse asking the living not to weep.
And over time, something else appeared.
Beads.
Placed gently, quietly, without ceremony or superstition, not because of a haunting, but because of remembrance.
There is no documented ritual that ties to Elizabeth Percival. There's no tradition that's passed down through generations, no record of annual gatherings or formal memorials.
What exists instead is something modern, a collective decision made softly to honor her life during a season once marked by the moment she lost it.
Mardi Gras beads are left at her grave. They're not an offering to the dead. They are acknowledgments from the living.
They say, "We see you, we remember you. You were more than what happened to you."
Before we close, we want to take a moment to speak directly to anyone listening who may have experienced domestic violence. Elizabeth Percival's story reminds us that abuse has long-lasting effects and that no one should face it alone.
If you or someone you know is in danger, help is available. You can call or text the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE. That's 1-800-799-7233. Or visit thehotline.org. Trained advocates are available 24/7 to offer support, safety, planning, and resources. You deserve safety, respect, and peace. Reaching out is a brave and important step.
We encourage our listeners to share these numbers, check on friends and loved ones, and know that support exists. History shows us the harm of silence, but we also see the power of speaking up and helping each other.
Elizabeth's voice continues through the record and through us. Let's honor it by taking care of each other today.
This has been Beyond the Past, because history doesn't rest.
And neither should you.
Hey listeners, Lady Salem here. I've recently joined Historic Galveston Ghost Tours as a guide. This company offers 7 different walking tours, so there really is something for everyone. From ghost walks on the Strand, to haunted homes, to historic cemeteries, to architecture, to island history, pub crawls, and Galveston's legendary red light district. So if you're visiting Galveston, come take a walk with me or with one of our amazing guides who love the island as much as I do. And when you book online, make sure you use the code BEYONDTHEPAST to get $5 off your ticket. I will drop that in the description. Historic Galveston Ghost Tours. 7 ways to experience Galveston